Hey y'all, welcome to Fitting and Homemaking. My name is Sarah, and today we are going to be talking about Midwinter, the Midwinter holiday, and some of the things I'm doing to celebrate the Midwinter holiday. So, as you may or may not know, Midwinter is the day that is exactly between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. So it's really a day when we start looking forward to the spring season and preparing for the coming spring season, right? Midwinter is celebrated in a lot of different cultures. The pagan holiday for Midwinter is called Imbolc. If you are of a Celtic pagan variety, because I know when I say pagan, there's all kinds of paganism, right? Pagan just means not Christian. In some circles, that's how some people view paganism. So Celtic pagans celebrate Imbolc on Midwinter. If you are a Christian, there's a Christian holiday called Candlemas that growing up as a Christian, I was unaware of it. I grew up in the Methodist church, and it wasn't something that was really emphasized. But that was created when the early Christians were trying to convert Celtic pagans to Christianity. And one of the really effective ways that you can convert people over to your religion is to make it familiar to them, right? So they bring in God as a reason for these things happening, as a reason for the seasons changing. And then the pagan, newly converted Christian people can continue with their own familiar traditions, and it doesn't become as much of an ask to incorporate just a new part to the tradition rather than completely having to get rid of previous traditions, right? So early Christians were smart. They wanted to make Christianity feel comfortable, right? They wanted it to not be something that's super unfamiliar to people because they knew they could get people to convert to Christianity much easier that way, right? I'm not a Christian scholar. I'm not a religion scholar. Do not come for me, but these are just things that I've picked up from having an art history degree, and you do learn a lot about religion and socioeconomic status and how groups of people change their beliefs in general. And this is a pretty widespread thing that people do when they are trying to convert people from one religion to another, right? It makes sense. It's smart. Work smarter, not harder, right? So Candlemas is the Christian holiday for Midwinter. But in America, we have a completely secular holiday, which growing up, I was completely unaware was even remotely connected to Midwinter, right? No one told me, hey, Groundhog's Day is a Midwinter celebration. We are celebrating the midpoint between the winter solstice and the spring equinox, right? No one ever told me that. What I knew about Groundhog's Day is that we asked a very large rodent if the weather was going to warm up soon, right? If spring was going to be coming. And if the groundhog came out of his little burrow and saw his shadow, you knew that you had 6 more weeks of winter, or I think in other parts of the country, they say 40 days rather than 6 weeks, but 6 more weeks of winter. If the groundhog does not see a shadow, that means spring is coming soon. Now, I grew up in the Midwest. Spring was never coming soon on February 2nd, right? You could be pretty assured that spring was still going to be at least 6 weeks away just because of the nature of where we lived. But for my non-Americans out there, we have a famous groundhog called Punxsutawney Phil. And I don't know what number of Punxsutawney Phil we are on now, but that was kind of the first recorded Groundhog's Day celebration. And that was first recorded in 1887. So we've been doing this for a while in American standards, right? America's only been a country since 1776, right? So on the American timeline, that's quite some time to have a specific celebration, especially a celebration surrounding a groundhog, right? And if you don't know what a groundhog is, another name for a groundhog is a woodchuck. You know, like how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Woodchucks and groundhogs, it's the same animal, right? It's just a different name. So how did that tradition come about, right? Is this just something that's wholly American? And as the answer to most things, that answer is no. America is a nation of immigrants, right? Not going to get into the politics of that right now because I'm just going to get super pissed off. But we are a nation of immigrants. And immigration to America is what has made our modern day culture, and it's one of the things that I think has made us strong, because we can welcome people in and not co-opt their traditions, but learn about their traditions. And if it seems like a better way of doing things, we can incorporate that into our own lives, right? So we can learn from each other, from people who are doing things differently from us. And that is where our strengths come in. The more diverse a group is, the more problems you're going to be able to solve together, because you have more perspectives on how to approach that problem, right? So, sorry, I work in user experience. Diversity in user groups is a big thing for me, and I'm just really pissed off right now with the state of the world. But German immigrants in the mid-18th century, so 1725, 1775-ish, immigrated from Germany over to America. And there was just a big wave of immigration that happened, and they tended to settle in the area of Pennsylvania. And Americans now refer to this group as the Pennsylvania Dutch, because they brought so much culture and transferred it over to America that it's like, it still exists. It's still a cultural thing that exists in America, even though it's hundreds of years later. So the Germans came over to America, and they brought this tradition with them. And you might think, this is silly. Why are we asking a rodent what the weather's going to be? That doesn't seem logical. Like, what were these people doing? Like, it seems completely out of their mind. But if you actually think back to how things used to be and how much more tied to the natures, or to the rhythms of nature we used to be, and how much more dependent on nature and how much more susceptible to the whims of nature humans have been in the past, it actually starts making sense. Because this is one of those things, like you're taking a diversity of thought, I guess, if you can look at it that way, right? So as humans, we have used the big lump 3 feet above our asses, right, to make our lives better and to not have to be at nature's whim all the time. We've built beautiful shelters for ourselves. We have electricity now, we have heating, we have fires to keep us warm, right? So even hundreds of years ago, we had fires, we had shelters, we had clothes, we had these things, we had candles, so that we could light up the dark, so that we could work longer if we needed to. So we became less in tune with nature because we didn't have to be as in tune with nature. However, compared to now, they were still more susceptible to the seasons, right? So winter was long, it was hard. If you didn't preserve enough food, you would probably starve to death, right? They didn't have super convenient grocery markets. That was not the word I was looking for, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I mean, stores to go and get groceries from. We didn't have refrigeration and easy ways just to store things for a long time. They had to know how to preserve their food using salts and using fermentation and all of these techniques that someone had to learn, right? So they were more susceptible to the winter, but not as susceptible as wild animals were, right? So they would go into the forest, and the smaller mammals, like in this instance, badgers, rather than woodchucks, or I almost called them gophers. Gophers are something entirely different. Groundhogs. But in Germany, apparently they used badgers because it is another small mammal that lives in the woodlands that hibernates, right? And around midwinter, they would start to come out of their burrows and kind of feel things out and see if it was time to kind of start waking up to where there would be enough resources to actually go out and forage for food and be able to sustain themselves. Or if they didn't see enough signs that spring was coming soon, they would go back in and they would hibernate more, right? Because they're wild creatures. Like, that is what their survival is based on. If they make a bad judgment call in that respect, they die, right? They don't make it. So looking to woodland creatures who have to be more in tune with nature than humans were even at that point, even though they were still susceptible to the weather and these sorts of things. They're not literally living in a burrow outside, right? So it makes sense to look to nature, to look to other animals who have that really basic survival instinct, to look to them for knowledge about, is spring coming soon or not? And start to make plans based on that. So now, I mean, in the Groundhog's Day celebrations and festivals, it's literally a handler getting a groundhog. Usually they're in like wildlife centers and that sort of thing. So they bring them out from the wildlife center. These are not wild groundhogs that people are handling, right? Because they're fairly large for rodents. I mean, it's like, they're like this big, right? So they have specific handlers so the groundhog's not getting hurt. And then they kind of chitter back and forth to each other. And they ask the groundhog, hey, do you see your shadow or not? You know? And then the groundhog chitters back to them. And they have a little pretend conversation, right? And then the person just tells you whether they think spring is coming or not based on scientific things that we have now, right? Just meteorology, based on meteorology that we have. So now it's like this little whimsical, fun thing that we do. But back in the day, that was actually a valid thing to look at the behavior of wild animals around you and determine if spring was going to come or not, right? I mean, if you're in the woods and a whole crap ton of wild animals runs past you, and you turn around, you're like, oh, I wonder what that's about. No, you like turn around and you run with them, right? Because obviously something bad is coming. And they can tell that, right? So even though the tradition, what it has turned into seems a little bit silly, the initial source of it, when you think about it, isn't that silly at all. They're just looking around them and reading the signs of nature. And we know that animals can do that kind of better than most humans can now, right? So that's my little background on Groundhog's Day. And if you're wondering why the Germans used a badger in Europe and a groundhog here, we do have badgers in America, but they tend to be in the western half of the country. America is very large. And the groundhog was a similarly sized hibernating mammal, right? So I don't believe we have mammals in the eastern part where those German settlers were immigrating, right? So that's why they changed from a groundhog to a badger. There just weren't badgers where they were settling. But nationwide, we have a groundhog called Punxsutawney Phil. Like I said, that celebration has been happening since 1887. But because America is such a large place, a lot of different regions have their own groundhogs. So the town I live in actually has a groundhog that comes out on February 2nd and makes a prediction about whether spring is coming soon or not. So that's really nice to have one that is local. And they also, across the country, it's kind of fun because they keep stats about how accurate they are. And I guess there's one, I forgot their name. Was it on Long Island? I can't remember, but there's one in the Northeast, like farther northeast than not Philadelphia, than Pennsylvania. It's too many P words. It actually has like an 80% accuracy rating, which is crazy to me. Punxsutawney Phil is right about 50%, so it's kind of like toss of a coin that's just pure chance for that. But some of them actually have pretty good reputations for doing the local predictions of whether the season is coming or not. All right, so I hope that was a little bit of a fun little history lesson for you. Sorry, I'm not very good at storytelling. I kind of jump all over. But how I want to celebrate Midwinter is I'll be at work. Wait, will I be at work? No, I won't be at work because I'll be working from home that day, but we are supposed to get a snowstorm this weekend and have like 4 to 7 inches. So I don't think we will be getting out of the house on Groundhog's Day. Otherwise, we would go and see our local groundhog prediction because it's just fun. It's fun. But how I'm celebrating Midwinter with you today is I'm actually going to be doing some gardening planning. So as we're looking forward to the spring season, I want to figure out where we're going to plant things in our garden, what we're going to have in our garden. Excuse me. So I went ahead And I drew this. I'll put a picture up because I'm sure you can't see that very well. But I went ahead and I drew out the garden beds that we have in the front and wrote down what I think I want to put in there. So this is the front garden bed. We have the blueberry bushes here. And that was all that was in that front bed. And as you can see, it's quite a large bed. I mean, this is obviously not a scale. This is just a little sketchy poo, right? But I want to put herbs up here and have an herb garden this year. These are just, if you can even see that, those are just stepping stones that I have down the middle of the bed because it's big enough where I didn't want us like walking on the soil and that sort of thing, mushing it down where the actual plants were. But as I was researching what herbs would be good to plant that we use, because it's near the blueberries and we've invested in those blueberry bushes, and I don't want the blueberries to get damaged by planting the wrong things next to them, right? So I looked up companion planting for blueberries, and most herbs are actually great to have next to blueberries. So on my herb list for the blueberry bed, which is just what I've been calling that, is basil, mint, thyme, chives, and rosemary. So I'm hoping to plant that in the front of the bed. And then when I was looking up companion plants, they also said strawberries are really good companion plants as ground cover. I'm not sure why I'm having issues with my piece today. I'm so sorry. But strawberries are actually good ground cover companion plants for blueberries. And the blueberries right now are small, so they do have a decent amount of space around them. So we do have our strawberry bed here. So I was like, well, that's great that the strawberries and the blueberries are next to each other. I just did that for, for convenience. But I'm wondering if in this space here, strawberries, like they eat them while they're literally standing in the yard. They don't make them inside. They don't make it inside the house, right, for us to eat later. So I'm wondering about maybe planting some extra strawberry bushes there. And I think that would be a cool idea because our strawberries have done so well and they've just gone off on their own. They've spread. It's been great. So maybe I will do that. But that was a newer idea that I came up with. And then we also have my very lovely drawing here of the side beds on the house. So we always do peppers, and I really liked having the tomato plant last year. So I think we're gonna do peppers and tomatoes. And then I looked at companion plants for those, and a lot of herbs are good with them too. So if there's some herbs that I don't think are gonna go well in the front, I can switch some of them out. But I'm planning on doing garlic and oregano in this bed, I think, with the peppers and the tomatoes. And then I want to try the carrots again. We only had one carrot that made it, but I think it's because we planted it not at the right season because carrots are cool weather crops. And we also, that was the only thing that we started from seeds because like root vegetables, they don't transplant well from seedlings. So I'm going to look up when is the best time to start carrot seeds outside. But I'm going to plant them in the front of this bed. And then I think in the back of this bed, what I'd like to do is plant some flowers, but I want to plant edible flowers. Now, I've not eaten many flowers before. I've had like, what are they called? Some salted cherry blossoms, and I've had some stuff with rose in it. I've had some stuff with lavender in it, but I haven't actually made any of that myself. I have drank a lot of tea with different flowers in it, right? Herbal teas. So I have a list of companion plantings that are good for carrots and tomatoes and peppers, because even though this shows them as separate beds, like the soil is not divided in any way in between the two. They're not separated raised beds. They're just in the ground, and I just have covers over them, essentially mesh covers over them. So some of the ones that I'm looking at, some of the flowers I'm looking at planting here are chamomile, calendula, zinnias, and lavender, because I know we would get use out of those things, and I think they're beautiful. And they would also provide cut flowers for us in the summer, even just to look at in like little bunches. I know these aren't, the kind of cultivated flowers that you normally buy in a store, except for maybe the zinnias. Zinnias, I think, are very beautiful. But they're supposed to be good for keeping pests away or attracting pollinators to this area. So I want to do that this year, but I'm going to put them in the back of the bed because I think some of them can get quite tall and I don't want to overshadow the carrots too much. But that right now is the plan. I will take y'all outside and show you where these things are so you can get a little bit of a better idea. So let's head on out. All right, y'all, so I'm still not certain what I'm going to do here. I just put some nice flowers in here in the fall. But obviously you can see some of the ice that we got is still here. It's been incredibly cold this week for where I live. It's maybe 30 degrees out right now. But this is the main blueberry bed that I was talking about. You can almost like not even see the blueberries. But look, this guy's already got buds on it. And I guess I'll have to cut off this front part because it's not doing well. These have some buds and new growth. Hopefully these just won't absolutely die with all the snow we're supposed to get. But you can see the little stepping stones in the middle there. So there's plenty of room to plant strawberries like here, or even like just one strawberry plant, in between there. So maybe strawberry plant here, in between. I don't know, but we have this whole front area for herbs. Now, I have seen herb gardens before and I know they can get overgrown really quickly. So I think especially the mint tends to run wild. So we might try to make sure that is, contained a little bit. You can see we still haven't had a weekend to take the Christmas lights down. This is the strawberry bed. And even though this gets a lot of sun, you can see just in the shade of the landscaping bricks there that the ice is still on them. But look at how nice they look even with the ice. They're still going strong. Apologies if the view's a little shaky here. I'm a little bit cold. I should have popped on a coat. And then here are our beds. I left out the tomato cages because we have been using those with the peppers and the tomatoes. But I'm really excited to get this bed, get a lot of carrots in here hopefully, and get some flowers that we can cut. And then I'm sure my husband will probably want more peppers than just jalapenos, but at least jalapenos, maybe a habanero. The cherry tomato plant did really well. And then some more herbs down here in the front. I think that would be good. All right, and then this is a gardenia bush that used to be like a third of that size. But I planted that not long after I moved. But yeah, look at these strawberries. It's just insane that they're still doing this well. I mean, it's been below freezing for quite a while now, like over a week now, because the ice was last weekend. But yeah, so this bed is just huge. I'm gonna try to not hit my head on my daughter's wind chime here. It's like a little butterfly thing. But yeah, I mean, the bed's huge and most of it's unused. So I'm really excited to get some stuff in there this year. And there's Max trying to search for all the moles that are digging up our yard. Hey, Max. No, okay. All right, y'all, that's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed my little mini history lesson. I really enjoy kind of figuring out why things are the way they are. So that was a really fun tradition to research a little bit and look into. And now I have a better idea of why we are doing the things that we do and why these celebrations exist. So that's exciting for me. Maybe that's not exciting for you, but it's exciting for me. And it's also helping me kind of take the channel in the direction that I want it to go, right? Towards the end of last year, I wanted to incorporate nature and the seasons more into my homemaking. So sitting down and taking a little bit of time to celebrate the Midwinter holiday by making sure I'm getting my garden plans sorted out is just, it's exactly what I want to be doing, right? This is something that I want to teach my kids to do as they grow up. I know my kids are going to be so excited to see the new plants that we're going to have this year. And I know my daughter especially will be over the moon about the flowers, right? Because she's been asking me to plant flowers. But I hope you look forward to that. I'm going to document the garden this year. I'm going to try to stay way more on top of it than I have in the past, just because I am making that more of a priority. And who knows? I feel like with all the news and everything happening in the world today, I'm very much feeling that pressure to be a little bit more of a prepper for the apocalypse, because it feels like it's coming, and trying not to get too deep into that headspace. But having gardening skills, being able to produce your own food, being able to produce your own plants that have some medicinal purposes to them as well, those are all very good things in my book, right? So I hope you will join me along with the journey. Please like the video if you like this kind of content. I know it's a little bit different from what I normally do, but giving me a thumbs up will let me know if you like it or not. And go ahead, comment down below. Let me know what you're planning on having in your garden, if you have your garden plan sorted out yet. And subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can see more videos coming up relating to the garden and how I'm incorporating nature into my homemaking. Thank you so much for joining me and for watching all the way to the end. I love you guys so much. I hope you are safe and warm wherever you are this weekend with all this crazy weather. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.